How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. The Professor here, and today I have a box. It's got my address on the top, but in the box is not another box, but we got some packaging. We have an antenna. Which is mainly a bunch of wire, which we'll use later. But this is a kit to make an end-fed antenna. And this is the Biscuit style by Andy, which is N0APX. This is the 20-meter version. He recently came out with the 40-meter version, but this is going to be a fun little project. I'm just going to do the starting part today, and then we'll finish it up. And this is actually the first, pretty sure this is 3D printed. Wow. Yeah. But man, this is really good. This is the first 3D printed kit of anything I've ever gotten. All right, let's get, that's high quality though. I don't know. Man, that's very fine print lines. But we're gonna just get this started. Oh, whoa, that's cool. As an S-clip carabiner. Sweet. That's not in any of the things that I saw. Right, so what we need for this portion is we need this part of the BNC, or bayonet connector. That will do the next portion. I slide this coil off. There's coil magnet wire that we'll use later. But I'm just going to assemble the BNC connector and the bracket and get that glued on so that the glue can be setting and curing. Oh no, there is a one way to do it. See? This, he made as a recessed ring, so it does go the one way. Cool. And the BNC, the connector end, the wire end, the internal end, whichever, it's got a little scoop out of one part of this thing. He said to have that facing up. So I'm going to do that. And he said to have it, once everything's screwed down, have this on the right side. Looking at it this way, have it on the right side. This is also my first legit, no, actually, I was going to say this is my first legit soldering project, but I made a shock project in high school, and yeah, we soldered, I soldered it. Some people, I mean, you didn't have to if you made the right kind of circuit. Yeah, that's pretty darn snug. I'm surprised I got out that snug with just my fingers. Okay, looks good. We got the scoop, the slot up. And we got that on the right side. Time for some super glue. And you said you could install the bracket first or assemble it and then glue it on. I decided to assemble it first because when he was doing it with it, assembling it with the bracket already glued on, it looked more difficult, and I didn't want to do that. You said to do this a couple hours before you actually do the rest of it. I'm going to go ahead and do it overnight. Alright, so it's the next day, and yeah, it looks like it's set up pretty good. Nice and solid. And I'm doing voiceover because I knew that I would not be able to record audio on this day and the following day. But I'm going to go ahead and we're going to uncoil this wire here. So we're going to go ahead and do voiceover with the rest of it and see how this video turns out. It's been like a month or two since I did this recording. So we got the wire all uncoiled, and here I'm going to go ahead and straighten it. I use a technique that I forget where I learned how to do it, but you grab both ends of your wire with some pliers, and then you just pull it, and it helps get it straighter. It doesn't get perfectly straight, but if I pulled it a little bit harder or a little bit longer, it might have stayed a little bit straight. But this is perfect for what we're doing today. Okay, measuring out here, the instructions say 8 inches doubled. So you take 8 inches from the end and you fold it in half. I'd say maybe you could even go down to 7. I don't know if I would go less than 7 because less than that it would get pretty tight at the end. And you go ahead and twist it here. I'm doing a couple different methods. But if with 6 inches, I think it'll be a little short for the purpose that we use it here in a minute. And waiting for the camera to focus. There we go. Look at that spiral. That's a nice twist. All right. Okay, we get this toroid here, or ferrite toroid. I don't remember the exact terminology for it. And while I'm doing this, I'm pausing frequently to get the instructions, because they're pretty simple, but they're pretty simple, but I wanted to make sure I was doing it absolutely correctly. But we're going to do a couple turns clockwise here. One turn is each time it goes through the middle, so my right thumb is on the first turn, the second turn just went through, making sure it's nice and tight to the donut there. And then we unwind the long end that's partially twisted and partially not for some later shenanigans. All right, I'm going to take the rest of this, and I'm going to have a link for the video, the instructional video, in the description or the comments below, so go ahead and check it out. We're going to do some turns the other way around. I think it's a total of 14. I don't remember. It'll be in the description or the video. Please, I'm not setting this up as an instructional. This is just, hey, I can do it, you can do it too. But we're going to run a couple times through here whenever I remember to keep it in frame. I'm getting better than some of my earlier videos. There we go. So one thing I found is you press it at the top of the toroid before you pull it up and pull it through, and it works a little bit better. It stays a little bit tighter to it. I think I show it here. Yeah, here we go. You press it nice and tight here, and even go under a little bit, and then it stays nice and tight to your donut. Yes, I know it's not technically called a donut, but it's a toroid shape, and so, or torus, and so I'm calling it a donut because a donut's a torus too. Oh yeah, and you do a crisscross through the middle. It's a very interesting setup, this here. I don't understand the physics or the electronics of it at all, but hey, it seems to work. I haven't even really looked up the physics or electronics of it at all, as why the wraps are necessary or even how they work. Playing the video every now and then, counting them to make sure I got the number of turns correctly. Final count. There we go. Looks good. And that's what it looks like. Could have been a little bit neater, I think, but it's actually real good. Not much room for improvement, but I think there's a little bit of room for improvement. So this toroid is going to sit in the middle of the axle of the spindle. And this is an ingenious design, how they came up with it. Because all of this stuff fits real nice. And you slip two of the different wire ends through the holes there. But if it is a little bit shorter, it might be a little bit more difficult to do this portion. Making that a little tighter so it'll fit through the hole. And that cross wire that went from one side of the donut to the other, that is going to slip nice and neat around that center post. I'll show it here once it's together, using pliers to push things through. There we go. But if you're any kind of experienced with this kind of soldering, it'll be a lot easier for you. This was my first time building a kit like this. Alright, I set that aside so I could get my stuff in order. Okay, so while I'm getting this ready, I'm screwing on the handle here. While I'm getting all this ready, anyone who has any kind of experience with soldering, just to forewarn you, my soldering is terrible. I do not have a solder cleaner. As you can see, there's no steel wool or brass wool anywhere. This is the extent of my soldering kit. And my soldering looks super messy. There's the handle. There's a better shot of the handle. And that goes right on the screw. But my soldering is horrendous. I know I need to improve. I know I need a better soldering kit and more pieces. But hey, I got it done. And it's been worked for every little tiny bits of soldering I've done in the past. Why didn't I speed up screwing in a screw? Well, I'm not going to change it now because this voiceover is going to be what it's going to be. But the rest of the video is much better fast forwarding, cutting, and stuff like that. So, but this 3D print is amazing. I've had very little, well, most of the interaction I've had with 3D prints is like cheapo toys for kids, and very in the beginning, back in the fidget spinner craze, in the beginning days of 3D printing, I handled a 3D print then. But yeah, this print is high quality. So we're going to go ahead and take a look and get ready to solder those wires that are sticking up over to the ends of that BNC connector that we were just looking at. Okay, I'm measuring out some distances. That thick wire is going to go to that place I just pointed at, and then the thin single wire is going to go over to the bar extension that we saw. But yeah, I cut off like 2 inches of twisted wire. So I think folding it down to 7 inches instead of 8 inches would still work. Gonna untwist it some and gonna shave off the wire here. You can't really do this before twisting the wire because you don't know where this end is gonna be. I'm gonna use the razor blade method and some sandpaper here in a minute. There we go. There's my fast forward. And cut to when it's done. See here, have I already rewrapped it? Looks like I did. Yeah, so. Really want to trim that? That's right, I did. I wanted it a little bit shorter. The guy who made this, in the video he has a big loop. I just didn't like that. I wanted a much simpler arc straight from the where it comes out of the print to the connection. And so I shortened it more than I initially had. Get ready, realize that I need to do that for one thing, need to tin the tip, but I realized that this is not as stable as I want it to be. And I'm trying to figure things out. Look at me. There we go, there's a cut. I thought I put it in a different holder already. Well, okay, so you don't have too close of a eye on my terrible soldering, but I'm tinning the wire portion. Get that ready to be soldered, and got drips of solder on my mat. Don't worry, there'll be more drips of solder on the mat before everything's said and done. Gotta love an improvised stand. Yes, I know the grip's weird. I don't usually grip it like that, but hey, it worked for what I was doing. Still tinning the tip because, like I said, I'm terrible. And it's not the best job at tinning right there, but it's enough for my desires. I'm gonna angle this so I can stick it in the end of the connector there and make the next solder. Looks like I already cleaned off the lacquer on the or enamel on the other wire as well, so that's wonderful. All right. My hand is blocking the shot. Like I said, this is not a instructional video. This is a, hey, this dummy can do it, you can do it too. Probably better than me, anyways. One thing, I'd say the only thing that I do not like about this design is once you solder that coiled, the twisted wire right there that I've been soldering and working with, and the other wire in place, there's no protective cap that goes over it or anything like that. That is the one thing that I would add or change to it. And I could do that myself. I could put like either a whole bunch of hot glue or slap some pieces of plastic together to glue on as a cover. And I may get around to doing that someday as well. Bending that lug, that extension out, getting that ready for the single wire. Because again, I didn't like how far it was sticking out. I just wanted a little bit more streamlined, and so I'm doing that there. Stick it through, bend it over, trim off some excess. Then bend it closer and flush in preparation for soldering. Set up my improvised stand again. Now I'm more prepared for it. I think this solder turns out better. Look at that. Nice and solid. It's not pretty, but it's functional. There we go. Look at that. Look at that skill that needs improving. That's a big glob of solder right there. Using the other side of the reel as a holder for this. This is an interesting, very well made design. This is ingenious in how everything is set up and goes together, as it fits nice and neat. Getting that end stripped off, and I'm gonna tin that too. Yay! Saved us all the time in speeding all of this up. Shorten that other long wire. Show you that I cleaned it off again. There's a cleaned product. Yeah, I think this is day 3. I think I see I have a different shirt on. You tie that knot and you get it adjusted nice how you want it, and I twisted the antenna wire, the black, with the wire from the donut. That's all twisted together. And the initial toroid is supposed to be hot glued in, but mine fit in just so tight and snug that I decided to just not do anything. I did put a drop of hot glue in between the wires I just soldered together and the donut, and you just slip that on there, and you pull out your other screw, get that with the 3D printed washer. At this point, my phone phone memory was running out, so definitely being more precious with the footage. Look at that. And then it's done. You just wind it up, which works real smooth. It winds up real nice and smooth. Look at that. And there's that hole for attention to deploy it. You just pull that out, and then you just pull the wire and out goes your antenna. Alright folks, that's the video. I've used it a couple times. It seems to be working pretty good. It's just no one was on the band or anything when I was trying it out, so I didn't hear anything. I did a quick test, not the best test. I used my Baofeng for a quick test, but I didn't have a VHF UHF antenna for my my big radio, which is what I got the Biscuit for. It's for my big radio. I didn't have a antenna that works with the same frequency, so, but it seems to be working real good. I need to test it some more, use it some more. I need to get out there and do more stuff. That's the video. Again, this is to show you that this dummy can make the Biscuit and do a semi-decent job, so you can do as good or better job. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Most importantly, have a great day.